Okay, so this is the kalkaleth legend. So kalkaleth was this big woman from the mountains. She was as big as the trees, and she's like the partner to Smileth, the Sasquatch. As I was told, maybe it's the counterpart of the Smileth, the Sasquatch. And kalkaleth had, this big basket on her back, and she was told that she would wander from village to village, making sure that children are behaving and not going outside at nighttime. So she would say, like the community members would say, you better come inside, it's getting dark. You don't want kalkaleth to come and get you. And so it was very known amongst the communities to make sure you came in and not wandered far from the village. You always have somebody with you and not be alone out on the land. And so kalkaleth had hair all in her face, and you could see her big lips through her hair. And you could hear her wander through the village, and you'd hear whoop. And that was the sound of her swooping up some of the children, the mun-mun, and putting them in her basket. And so around this time, there was a little boy in one of the villages. His name was Takechtin. And Takechtin was a boy, not yet a man. But from a very young age, your elders would see things in you, your gifts that you had. And they told Takechtin that he was going to be a carver. And so they gave him a little pouch with some carving tools in there. And he would grab any old stick and he'd be carving, and he was practicing to his best ability. But because he wasn't a man, we were having one of our sla'ashins, our feast, and Takechtin was going to watch all the kids in the village. And so he was in the longhouse, all the kids were outside playing, and he was carving away. And he noticed that it was just starting to get dark. So he was yelling, man, weskate. He said, children, come, it's starting to get dark, you need to come in. Well, the kids are outside, they're laughing and playing. They were having so much fun, they didn't hear Takechtin to say, come in. And he's carving away. He was just really busy on a little project he was working on. And then he said, oh, the kids still aren't coming in. So he called them again. Weskate, man. And then all of a sudden he didn't hear anybody outside. So he went running, he put his tools back in his pouch, he ran out, and sure enough, he didn't see any of the children outside. And so he ran, through the village a bit, and he saw these big footprints. And he goes, oh no, kalkaleth has come here. And so he goes, I gotta catch her before she gets to the end of the village, because when they get to the end of the village, she starts brushing her footprints away, and nobody knows where kalkaleth lives. And he said, I gotta catch her before she gets to the end of our village. So he's running and running, and sure enough, he caught up to kalkaleth. And anyone that's older in our village, that's elderly female, they call ta'a. And so he was going, ta'a, and she looked down, she saw him, and she went, whoop, popped him in her basket. And he saw all the man, they were like, they're all crying. And he's like, children, be quiet. I have a plan, but I need you to be quiet, calm down. So they're wiping their tears. They're so scared because they knew they were going to go up to kalkaleth's cabin and she was going to eat them. And so he said, I have a plan to get us out of here. And they're like, how are you going to help us? You're stuck in the basket too. And he said, he goes, remember that I'm a carver. He goes, I got tools. I'm going to cut a hole in the bottom of this basket, and I'm going to start releasing some of the children. But because kalkaleth is so tall, he said, you're going to have to slide all the way down her body. As soon as you hit the ground, you have to roll in the bushes right away. And so the kids were like, okay. He goes, but we need people to watch where we're going, so we know how to get back home. So just a few kids were gonna watch just where they were going. He goes, we're at the end of the village now. kalkaleth is gonna come, and she's gonna put the basket down, and she's gonna put hot sap in our eyes, like this pitch. So no one's ever known where she lives, because she puts this sap in their eyes. And he goes, when she does that, I want you to close your eyes really tight, so the sap's just kind of on the outside of your eye. He asked the children, can you do that? And the kids are like, yeah, okay, we'll try, Sure enough, just like Takechtin said, kalkaleth put the basket down, she had her pitch she tried to put it in their eyes, and he's like, close your eyes really tight. So they closed their eyes, and it just got on the outside of their eyes, and after a while it dried up a bit and they could open their eyes. He's like, keep watching where we're going. He was telling his 2 watchmen to know what the trail they were taking to kalkaleth's house. He goes, okay. He goes, I'm gonna cut the hole in the basket. We're gonna put some little kids on some of the bigger kids' backs, and then we can slide down her leg. And all of a sudden, kalkaleth heard a thump. She was like, what was that, children? And Takation said, oh, we just dropped some of our stuff so it wasn't so heavy for you to carry all of us. And she's like, oh, okay, thank you. And then they kept going up to her cabin, her longhouse, and he goes, I need some of the brave kids. Who's brave enough to come with me to kalkaleth's cabin? And we're gonna deal with kalkaleth once and for all. And so some of the kids are like, I'm in, I'll help. And so most of the kids, they said, make sure you tell our parents what direction we were going. And so a lot of the kids, they got to run back to the longhouse. And, you know, some brave kids went up with Takation to kalkaleth's house. He goes, okay, when we get there, she has her big longhouse. She has a big fire pit. And when she gets there, she's gonna make a big bonfire. And she's going to put her ceremonial paint on, and she's going to dance around her fire. He goes, when she does that, we're going to ask to dance with her because she's lonely. She'll want us to dance with her because she doesn't have friends or anybody because she eats everybody. And he goes, when she least expects it, we're going to push her in her own fire. And again, he asked the kids because it was not an easy task. He goes, can you guys do this with me? And they're like, yes, we can. So sure enough, just like Takation said, she built up her big fire, put her ceremonial paint on. She was like, hi-yo, hi-yo, oh, oh. She's dancing around her fire, singing her feast song. And Takation said, ta, quail's chop, can we dance with you? And she's like, yeah, okay. So she let them out of the basket, and they're all dancing around her big fire. And they're just joining in, singing with her. She did enjoy that they were dancing with her. And he goes, children, on my count. He said, in, chout, ot, nose, chonnet. And they just tripped her one leg. And she fell, and she was falling into her own fire. She looked like a tree. She was just timbering down. She's so big. And she was burning up. And she's like, children, help me. And the kids are like, you're too big, Grandma. And they were pushing her with sticks in the fire more. And she had these things like, she had all these mitchins in her hair. And all of a sudden, all her ashes went, whoo, and it turned into thousands of mosquitoes. Kalkaleth turned into mosquitoes. And it said to this day that if you're out on the land and you see the mosquito needles, that's kalkaleth. And she still loves to take the blood from the children. That's the story of kalkaleth.